we should all be able to celebrate the Purim with the Purim of Hebron. We should all be able to find 50,000 gold coins on their windowsill. Okay, not gold coins, maybe bitcoins, but some type of coins. We should be able to find on our windowsill.
And then everybody's going to say that Yosy wish everybody can have a bit of coins on their windowsill.
So that's the Purim. We should all be zoichet to that Purim, to the Purim of finding 50,000 gold coins on our window. I wonder what's worth more, a gold coin or a Bitcoin? Bitcoin is worth about $47,000, right? Yeah. And the gold coin is worth how much?
The biggest gold coin can't be more than 5 ounces.
Okay, so we should say it's a Bitcoin.
It's under 1,800, and it's $1,800 a U.S. ounce.
So gold, which has it has an internal inherent shavius, is worth less than this Bitcoin, which is Luftsachen. It's unbelievable.
Is that they only made gold, they only make dollars so that you shouldn't have to schlep around a huge money bill, 50 pounds of gold coins, right? But now it's just the opposite. The gold is much more convenient to carry around as far as weight than the dollars, right? You can have $1,800. It's a big wad of money. You have one little teeny ounce. Now it's just the opposite.
Okay, so let's see the Heilige Gemara. So we're up to the second wide line at the bottom of Hey Amud Beis. So what we're going to do is a Mishnah Shabbos. We're going to learn 7:30, and we're going to learn upstairs. I'm going to start with the other share at 7:15, and hopefully in those 15 minutes I'll be able to cover what we're going to learn today. But with that I go very, very fast. Okay, so let's see the Heilige Gemara. Oh, good morning, doctor. Gufa. Really, I shouldn't start because really, Moti's making coffee for the so we should wait for him. Shabbos we're learning, yeah. We'll learn the Shabbos about 45 minutes before Mecca. Gufa. Chizkiya Kari B'Tveria Bar Beisar Ubechamesar. Chizkiya celebrated Purim and learned the Megillah in the city of Tveria, both on the 14th day of Adar as well as on the 15th day of Adar. Why would he do that? Like we learned earlier, Misafkele, he wasn't sure. Imu Kefes Chayma Mimosh Yeshua Benun, he Eloi. He wasn't sure about the origins of the city of Tveria. Was it Mukavas Chayma in the days of Yeshua Benun? So that's what Chizkiah told us. So Frank the Gemara, good morning. Umi Misafkele, Milsa de Tveria. Was Chizkiah really unsure about what was going on in Tveria? Baksiv, we have a passage. It says, "V'ayir mivtzar." Let's see the pasuk inside. V'ayir mivtzar. Here. Oh, thank you very, very much.
I didn't make it.
I told him to make it very light.
I
told him that. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol neh b'vor. Gewaltig.
I told you why you make your coffee, never ask me again.
So I'm just trying to see where my pasuk that I'm looking for is. It's pasuk Dal. Okay. V'arei mivtzar hatzidim tsar v'chemes rakas and the Kineres. So arei mivtzar means fortified cities. In other words, with walls. Rashi's v'arei mivtzar hatzadim b'sefer Yeshua in the Nachla of Naphtali, the Kaimalon. And we know that the city of Rekes that's listed in this pasuk as Ari Mivtzar, the Karli Ari Mivtzar Alma Mukefes Chaimavon. So you see in the Navi Yeshua, we're referring to the city of Rekes as a fortified city. So why is it that Chizkiah was not sure whether or not Tveria was a walled city? We have a pasuk in the days of Yeshua Benun that talks about Rekes, which is going to be Tveria, that it's a mivtzar, it's a city of mivtzar, it's a city with a wall. The Kaimalon Rekes to Tveria. The reason why Chizkiah had a suffix, Hainu time of Dimisafkale, Mishum the Chad Gisa Shura de Yamahabs. Tveria is along the Kinneret. It was only walled on three sides. The fourth wall was the Yam. In fact, the Gemara, Ihachi, if that's the case, Amai Misavkale. So what's the Havamina to consider it a walled city? Vadai Lav Chaimehi. Water is surely not the wall. The Tanya, Asher loy chayma, and this is speaking about when you're selling a house, b'batei arei chayma, v'loy shor iger. It has to be a real wall and not a shor iger sovit. Prat, this excludes Tveria sheyama chemasa. So what is this shor iger that's not qualified as a wall? So let's see Rashi. The chad giza shur the yama havya. Ein la chayma mitzad echad. On one of its four sides, Tveria doesn't have a physical barrier. El hayam chemasa. The water is its chayma. Misavkalei yichashav hakif ilai. And that was Chizkiyahu Suffolk. Chizkiyahu Suffolk was, sure, it had a wall, but one of its four walls was the Kinneret. The question is, does the Kinneret qualify as a wall, Lagabe, the halacha of Mikra Megillah, and therefore he wanted to lay Megillah on both days. We know that for Batei Arei Chayma, for sure water would not be good because a shor iger is not good. What is a shor iger? It's a shor iger. The Batei Arei Chayma says, in the Parsha of Batei Arei Chayma, it says Ir Chayma. The way the Torah expressed a walled city when it was talking about the halacha of selling a house was Asher Lo Chayma, it has to have a wall. Never once does it mention in the Megillah anything about a wall. It just says Alkain Arei Prozim. And we figured if Arei Prozim is this way, so Batei Arei Chayma is this way. But it never says with Farish in the Megillah that it has to have a wall. So let's see Rashi weiter.
And wasn't there a Gzera Shava? How do you make a Gzera Shava about Batei Arei Chayma? Didn't we learn?
The Gemara tells us why we know about Arei Chayma is because it says Akein Hayudim Hayoshim Barei Prozos. So the Megillah only directly addresses cities without walls, and we're medayik. If cities without walls have one halacha, so then cities with walls have a different halacha. The Gemara was probing maybe they're Potter and Ganson, maybe they do both days. And then the Gemara, using different svaras, said it's logical to say that if the Torah says that the regular cities are on day 14, it's logical to argue that Batei Arei Chayma are on day 15. I don't know.
Okay. About the idea of from Yeshua ben Nun, why is that a criteria?
Oh, why does it have to be Moshe Benun? I don't know if we discussed that yet.
I think we, in an earlier blot, I recall we'd had a Gzera Shava of some kind.
Yes, that's right. There was a Gzera Shava of Prazi, that's right. It says Prazi here. And
it was Prazi. It was on the Prazi, wasn't on the Mukaf Chayma.
That's right. So the whole way in Hilchos Purim, the concept of walled city is mentioned is never by name. It's just mentioned because we're defining what Arei Prazi is, and then by process of elimination, we learn what Arei Chayma is. It's funny that it never mentions anything about Arei Chayma. It actually never mentions it, ever. But by selling a house in a city with a wall, where if you don't redeem it within the year, you lose it forever, there it says Asher Lo Chayma. There it's very, very specific. So Rashi says, so we're back on Chayma v'lo Shor Iger. The Batei Arei Chayma ksiv, Ir Chayma v'lo Ir she'ein l'chayma b'fnei atzma, ela mukefes batim smucha yisulusu. So we're excluding not only does it have to have a wall, what if all the houses were built side by side around the perimeter of the city? So the outer wall of each of these houses could actually form a wall, right? That wouldn't be by Rachav they had that, but I'm not sure if by Rachav it would be considered, because by Rachav was a built wall. They happened to build houses in the wall. Here they just put houses together and the houses formed a wall. I'm not sure if there'd be a difference, but there might be a distinction.
How was it by Rachav that they had a wall and they happened to build a wall in a house?
They built a house in the wall. It was a very thick wall, and they built houses inside it. Yeah. Or when they originally put the bricks together for the wall, they built houses there. But it was a wall, it wasn't houses. No, if the wall made of houses, it's a problem. So let's see Rashi inside. Let's see finish Rashi. Let's see if we can figure out the comparison to Yericha. So Chayma v'lo Shor, but Batei Arei Chayma ksiv, Ir Chayma v'lo Ir she'ein l'chayma. V'lo Ir she'ein l'chayma b'fnei atzma, ela mukafes batim smuchim zulazu. It's surrounded by houses that are built very close to each other. The Chayma is chitzoyne shel batim, and the outer walls of all these houses, nasas Chayma le'ir, end up forming a wall to the city. Behind you, shor iger. That is shor iger. That's what the shor iger means in the Gemara. Shegagriseha chaymeseha. Its roofs are its walls. Gag mitargaminim iger. I'm not sure why the roofs are involved over here. It's the walls. The walls of the house form the walls of the city. But Rashi is saying that shor iger is referring to the roof because the roof forms the wall. I don't quite understand how that works.
We had that only looking sick, remember, in the roof.
Probably on a hillside.
That's Toif and Akuma. So you're talking about the guy, the guy's house is built crooked, so it's Toif and Akuma? Well, why do you need a roof for? You have the wall of the house.
Probably on a hillside of some kind.
The roof was flat, and there was walk between.
How does what does that have to do with the wall?
Basically, from the roof, from the roof, that's for the wall.
Okay, could be that's what it means. But Akol Ponim, that's not considered a wall. So is this compared to the house of Rachav that was inside the wall? I don't think so. Here, everyone built an independent house. They built them close together, it formed a wall. There, they actually built a wall with houses in it. So there's probably a difference in the construction. Well, I'm sorry?
You have the wall, you have the houses, and then the wall is the top.
Why is it all the top? Why isn't all the wall?
No, it's like the houses are built
Right,
to the wall,
right.
and they're connected by the wall, where the wall becomes the roof of all of the.
How can a wall be roof? It's just vertical, it's standing on a vertical plane.
Yossi, it's as follows. Chizkiah's wall was like 12 feet wide.
This wall becomes the roof of these houses that had butt into the roof. Like this is the wall. These are houses.
Uh-huh.
This roof is the wall becomes the thing that makes the
Part of the roof. Oh, so what Avigdor showed me is a picture of a wall that's surrounding the houses. The houses are connected to that wall, but let's say the wall is 10 feet thick. It's somewhat hollowed out, so your house extends into the wall. That's the picture. These are the 1,000 words to describe the picture that Avigdor showed me on his telephone. Okay.
Well, I just want to say that for people to be able to understand it, you have to show the picture. People have to see with their own eyes to be able to understand it.
That's right. A picture's 1,000 words. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says right there. So that's how Tveria was. Tveria didn't have a fourth wall. It was surrounded by water. And just like Lagabe Bata Erechaima, we don't even qualify the outside walls of houses that are built together as a wall. Surely, Pratlet Tveria, the Gemara says, Sheyama Chaimasa. It's Yam. The Kinneret is the wall. Surely that wouldn't work. So let's see Rashi Saviv. Lagabe Bata Chatzerim Ksiv Asher Ein Lahem Chaima Saviv. By Bata Erechaima, the Torah is explicit in saying it needs to have a wall. Michlal, the Bata Erechaima Misuvev Saviv Kamar. It has to be completely surrounded with a wall. Prat the Tveria Shiyama Chaimasa Shayam Shalah Hi Chaimasa Mitzara Echad. It's the Kinneret. That's the wall of Tveria on its, I would say, on its eastern side, right? Shiyama Chaimasa. Zakt Gemara, you're right. Le'inin Bata Erechaima Lo Misafle. Nobody has a suffix that the wall around Tveria does not qualify as a wall to make it an Erechaima like I was selling your house. And of course, if you sell a house there, you get it back by Yovel, you could redeem it anytime. Kiko Masavkale, Chizkiah's suffix as to whether or not the city of Tveria was considered a walled city is Le'inyan Mikra Megillah. Because Le'inyan Mikra Megillah, it doesn't mention anything about a walled city. It's my prozim, umay mukafin, the Chsidi Gabe Mikra Megillah. What does an era prozi mean? And then by extension, what is a Makavas Chaima regarding the halacha of Megillah? Mishum dahani miglu, dahani my miglu. Do you say that the difference between an open city and a walled city is an open city is completely exposed, and the walled city, even if it has one wall as the Kinneret, it's also uncovered. It's exposed, right? If you're coming along on the Kinneret, if you're taking a cruise on the Kinneret, you can peer in to the city. It's like they have many tours in, I think, Rhode Island, where you go along the ocean and you peer into the mansions of the millionaires because they're completely exposed on their oceanfront side. Or maybe maybe the difference between the Ari Prazi and the Mekava Chaima is Arei Prazi are not protected in any way. They're wide open. But the Arei that have walls around it are protected. And therefore, Vahanami Migni, the Tveria, the city of Tveria is also protected because the wall is a pretty good protection. You can't invade easily if it's through water. That's why Chizki had a suffix. He wasn't sure what is the criteria that tells us if it's considered a walled city or not. Lagabe Mikra Megillah. So Rashi ki misafkele Mikra Megillah. The loy meforsh b'chayma. Never does it say anything about a wall, a physical wall in the Megillah. El lashon prozim v'she'enin prozim ksivla. The Megillah just says the difference, the distinction between Arya Prazi and not Arya Prazi. And therefore, misafkele high lashon prozim. The lashon prozim, what does that mean? Does that mean lashon giloy, that it's exposed and Tveria is also exposed? Or does it mean a city that's not well defended because it's wide open, and a city that's open to the water is not considered vulnerable? It is considered well defended, and therefore it would be considered the halacha of Megillah. And that's why Chizkiah wasn't sure, and that's why he laid in the Megillah on both days.
The Rebbe was so sure that it was a walled city.
Correct. And Rebbe only laid the Megillah on day 15, and on day 14 he felt free to plant things, right? But anyway, there was no Shemalach. He would have planted it on the 15th too. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says. Rab Asi Kari Megillah b'Hutzal. Rab Asi read the Megillah in the city of Hutzal, b'Arbeisar u'b'Chameisar, both on day 14 and day 15, just like Chizkiah did in Tveria, because Misaf Galei, he wasn't not sure. Imu kavas chaybim b'Moshe Shua b'Nun Eloi or not. Ikad Amar, there are those who say, Amar Abasi said, Hi Hutzal, the base Binyamin, this Hutzal that's in the territory of Binyamin, Mukafes Chayma Mimosh Yeshua, I know for a fact that it is Mukafes Chayma Mimosh Yeshua. Amar B'Yechim, Kavina Talia, when I was a little child, Rashi says, Kishayisi Nar, Amina Milsa, I said a Chiddush. I said a Chiddush as a little child. You don't know if what you say as a little child has any validity or not, but I'm proud to say that I was very much validated. Because the She'ilna L'Sabia, they asked this question, now going on to Vav Amar Aleph, they asked this question to the elders, Vishtaka Kavasi, and they actually said just like I said, as a little child. So I'm very proud that I got it right. And what was the discussion? Chamas Zu Tveria. When it says in the pasuk Chamas, or is it Chemes? I'm not sure what the pronunciation of it is. The Chamas, yeah. Back into the pasuk of Yeshua. In Yeshua, when it says Chamas, that's referring to the city of Tveria. V'lama nikra shema Chamas. So why would it be called Chamas if we call it Tveria? So Gemara al shum Chamei Tveria, because there were Chamei Tveria in it. Since this was a city that has hot springs, they call it hot springs. Rekes Zutzipuri. The city of Rekes is the city of Tipuri. The Lama Nikra Shema Rekes. Why was it called Rekes? Mishum de Medallia Kiraksa de Nahara. Rekes, Tipuri was on a high mountain range. It was high up. So just like the shore is higher than the water that it borders, so too Tzipori was taller and higher than things around it. Rashi's Raksa de Nahara, Svas Hanar, Gavayim Hanar. Of course, the edge of the river bank is much taller than the river, otherwise the river would overflow. It's a mountaintop city. Zok to Gemara. I'm sorry. Kineres, the city of Kineres, Ginusar is the city of Ginusar. So why was it nicknamed Kineres? The Mesiki Peir Kikala the Chinri. It's a such sweet Paris, like the sweet music that comes out of a harp.
There's a city called Kinneret?
Yes. Oh, it is actually. It's actually there today as well. Is it there? The city Kinneret also.
Ginusar is just the northwest of the we had this fruit that we ate.
Yeah, it's very sweet. Yeah. I think there's a lot of diabetes in those cities. Amar Rava. Amar Rava. Rava said, Mi Ika Lamanda Omar Rekes Lav Tveria. Is there anybody who holds that Rekes is not Tveria? Vaha. Kishachav Inish Hacha. When someone dies here in Bavel, this is fascinating. So let's learn Rashi along with it. Kishemeis Adam Gadol beBavel, Hasam Saptile, there they would say the following hesped. Hachi Gadol hu b'Shashach. This guy was a big Gadol in Shashach. Shashach is a cryptic way of saying Bavel. Rashi says, Saptile Hasam b'Tveria. When someone dies in Bavel, in Tveria, they will be maspid. Why are they being maspid somebody who dies in Bavel in Tveria? Because the Yidden from Chutz La'aretz would send their mason to be buried in Eretz Yisrael, which is what many people do today. Where would you bury your mason if you're coming from Bavel? Bavel was to the north. Bavel was to the northeast of Eretz Yisrael, I believe. So when you're coming to Eretz Yisrael using the shortest route, you're going to end up in the northern part of Eretz Yisrael. You would end up near Tveria. So that's why they would bury, people from Bavel would bury their people in Tveria.
It's not actually the shortest route. You have to go all around because you want to avoid the desert. So you go a lot north, further north, and then south to go to Eretz Yisrael.
Because otherwise you'd have to go through a desert.
Yes, and people avoided that.
Saudi Arabia, that area? You want to go around Saudi Arabia?
No, it's on the other side of Jordan. If you go as the crow flies, you're going through a big desert.
Uh-huh.
So you got to go all around. So I wouldn't say it's, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So for some reason they didn't mention the word Bavel, they called it Shoshach. Because Shoshach, Rashi says, is Bavel b'chilav atbash. Right? If you interchange the first letter of the alphabet with the last, so the second letter of the alphabet, Beis, would match the letter Shin, and the Lamed would match the word Chaf. So they said, I'm not sure why they didn't want to mention the name Bavel, but in Eretz Yisrael, they would say, Achi Gadol hu b'Sheshach. This person who passed away was a great person even in Bavel. V'shem loy berekas. And he also has a good reputation in Rekas and Tveria. V'shem berekas, yotzal Hashem b'Tveria. And I believe what it means to say is, in Chutz La'aretz, he was a good guy. But who says he measures up to the Gedolim of Eretz Yisrael? This fellow was someone so choshev that even in Eretz Yisrael, he had a reputation. And when the Aron got, Rashi says, Shal Meis mi Bavel Akayver b'Tveria. So it seems like they started the Hespedim even before the Meis arrived. But when the Meis actually arrived in Tveria, Sapta Lahachi, they would say the following Hesped. I have a Suridim. Omer Hachit Rashi Saptanim, the people who were saying the Hespedim, Karin b'Shvakim b'Losh Nazeh. They would cry out in the marketplaces using this nusach. Sheyotzu l'kras hameis, sheyetzu l'kras hameis, to let everybody know we need to go greet the mace. I have a Suridim, those who love the refugees. Rashi says that means I have a Yisrael. People who love Yidden, what should you do? Yoshvei Rekas, the people who live in Tveria, Tzu'u v'kiblu haruke oimek. Come quickly to greet the people who were killed in the oimek in the valley, referring to Baba. Well, they're traveling a long time. I'm not sure in what condition those bodies arrived. After 3 days of traveling around the desert, I'm not sure. They went to the mikveh. I don't know.
It's funny because Yaakov being very rough on the
Could be people were sent as messengers ahead, right? The people carrying the mace are moving slow, and then they sent messengers ahead. So Yoshvei Rekas Tzuva Kiblu Aruga Emek Meisei Bavel Hamuka. People who died in Bavel. Okay, as an added piece of information, which we'll need shortly, is Rab Zera Olami Bavel Eretz Yisrael Umeisha Mitzvah. Rab Zera immigrated to Eretz Yisrael from Bavel, and he died in Tveria. So let's see back. Hinoch Nafshe the Rab Zera. When Rab Zera passed away, Pasach Alei Ahus Haptana, the person who was being maspid, started the following way. Eretz Shinar, the land of Shinar, which is referring to Bavel, Hara V'Yolda, became pregnant and gave birth. In other words, produced Rab Zera. Eretz Tzvi, Gidla Sheshuah, Eretz Tzvi, which is referring to Eretz Yisrael, Gidla Sheshuah Shel Shinar. It raised the little child, the play toy of Bavel. Oy no, woe is to it. Omer Rekes says, Ki of the Klichem Dosim, because it lost its beautiful, beautiful kelim. So that's how they were maspid. That's how they were maspid Reb Zera. I guess this is all relevant that we're referring to Tveria with the word rekas. Ella. So you see from here that not Chemes is Tveria, rekas is Tveria. So how could you rekas is Sipure? Clearly here you see that rekas is being used to describe Tveria. So Zaktamay Ella Amar Rava. Let me see what the Gersha says in the Tziyanim, in the base. Let me see if I can find it over here. Amar Rava, he says. So Amar Rava said, Chemes zu chamegrar and rekes zu Tveria. So he's changing it around. Chemes is not Tveria, referring to the hot springs. Rather, Chemes is referring to a different city, and rekes is the city of Tveria. Kineres zu Genusar, and Kineres is still Genusar. That didn't change. V'lama nikbar shma rekes. Why was Tveria called rekes? Shafilu rekanim shava. Even the people who are empty there, Milayim mitzvahs karimin, are full of mitzvahs like a rimin. Now somebody asks, one of the Mefarshim asks, don't we say that about all of Klal Yisrael? Afilu Poshe Yisrael are Milayim mitzvahs karimin, vos epis in Tveria b'dafka. And I don't remember what the teretz is, but the kasha was a good kasha.
Maybe we could answer that like the Revoinim of Tveria,
Could be.
like the Amma of Oy.
So it's in that league. Okay, I hear. Rabbi Yirmi Amar Rekesh Shema V'lama Nikra Shema Tveria Sheyosheves B'Tibura Shel Eretz Yisrael, because it sits in the belly, Rashi's B'Emtzeisa, in the center of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Amar Rekesh Shema. It's called Rekesh V'lama Nikra Shema Tveria Shetoiva Riyasa. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. So this is very interesting because the Gemara is like twisting itself into knots to say that it wasn't really Tveria. Why? Maybe the reason why it was called Tveria because that was its name. Why is Gemara twisting itself into?
I understand. I understood that it's called after the Roman Emperor Tiberius.
The Mefarshim say that really the reason why it was called Tveria because it was named after a Roman emperor who established the city. That's really why it was called Tveria. But since it's a holy city of Eretz Yisrael, the Gemara is twisting itself into knots to find other ways to identify the city. So it's called revisionary history. That's what it's called, which Jews are very good at. Right? Whenever they write historical novels, they always adjust it to fit our narrative. So this is Mamish doing exactly that. It wasn't really Tveria. It was this. It was Tveria. But we're coming up with 1,000 different reasons why it wasn't really Tveria. But it was Tveria.
It wasn't called Tveria until much later.
Uh-huh.
Tveria was named after Tiberius, who lived.
Could be, but the Maisa, that's what it was called. It was called Tveria. The Gemara could have said it was called Tveria because it was named after the guy who
It
was Yasser.
was called Tveria in the time of the Gemara, but it wasn't called Tveria in the time of the Torah.
I hear.
The Gemara is saying, why did the Shefer make it so that the name should eventually be called Tveria? You're giving me what? You're giving me a reason like kinetic energy, why this guy had a name, and we're not looking for the reasons behind it, why in heaven they wanted it.
And that's what the Big is saying. The Psukim refer to it by a different name because at that point, there was no Tiberius yet. I hear.
There was not a Kaplan. He was very famous in this. He would say, why did the man get kicked out? And they would say, well, a person raised his foot and kicked him out. With the laws of kinetic energy caused him to get kicked out. He said, no, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking the reason why. Why did the person get
Why did Rebbeinu make that happen? Okay, Zok Gemara Vayter. Omar Zeira. Kitroin, the city of Kitroin, Zutzipure, that is the city of Tzipure. V'lama nikra shma Tzipure. So why was it called Tzipure? Shoyesheves b'roisha har Kitzipur. We said earlier that Tzipure was on the top of a mountain, so it sits on the top of a mountain just like a bird that flies onto mountaintops. More of a Kitron Tzipure. Are you saying that Kitron was the city of Tzipure? But Kitron bechelka shel Zvulun havon. We know that the city of Kitron was in the chelek of Zvulun. And Zvulun was known to be a businessman. He was commerce. And not only that, he supported Yisachar, which will be very relevant in just a moment. Zvulun loy harish is yoshvei Kitron ves yoshvei nahala. We know that many of the Shvatim Klal Yisrael did a big avera, and they didn't completely rid Eretz Yisrael of all of the goyim that were a very bad influence upon them, like they were supposed to. And there was a tfi on them. So each shevet in their chelik, in their land, was responsible to clear the land. And Zavulun didn't clear the land. So that's how we know that Yoshve Kitron, the city of Kitron, was in Zvulun's chelik. Let's see Rashi. Laharish is Yoshve Kitron, Shabola Chalkoi. That was in their chelik. That was allotted to them by Yeshua. The Ovar al Masha Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Zvulun was over on what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Klal Yisrael, Loi Sechaya Kol Neshama. You need to completely rid your land of the enemies. V'anita v'henichan loger sham beineim, and they figured, why should we kill them? Let's let them remain alive, and we'll have them pay us taxes. L'halas lemas, and it ended up being a disaster because that caused Klal Yisrael to do averis because they learned from their neighbors. So that's how we know Kitron is in the chelik of Binyamin. So Gemara is in the middle of challenging. How could Kitron is Tzupure? We know Kitron is in the chelik of Binyamin. And Zvulun Misraim Amidoisavava, Zvulun was complaining. He was not happy with the chelik of land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him. Rashi's Amidoisav Al Mazaloi, Shenimdad Loi Min HaShemayim Mida Shein Chavetzba. He was given through the lottery this piece of land that he was unhappy with. Shenemar, it says Zvulun Am Choraf Nafshoy Lamus. He was upset. He was very upset. Why was he upset? Matam. Why was he so upset? Naftali al Moroi Meisada. Naftali, and it says in the pasuk, Naftali al Moroi Meisada. So we say Zvulun was upset because of Naftali Moroi Meisada. Let's see the pasuk inside. It is Zvulun Am Cheref Nafshe Lamos. He was so upset to die. He was so upset. Naftali al Moroi Meisada. What's the shaychus? So the Gemara tells us the shaychus is very simple. Amar Zvulun Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rebbeinu Shalom. Lachai, to my brothers, Nusatalim, Sadoi Sukramim, you gave them the most fertile land, Sadoi Sukramim, and me, what did you give me? Vili Nusata Horamukvayis, you gave me mountains and valleys, I'm supporting my brother. So you're going to give him tremendous land for agriculture and force me to have to deal with this land that's not really suitable to plant? You gave them land. My chelik was full of water. It's not flat land where I could do anything productive with it. He didn't realize that a bottle of water costs more than a bottle of gasoline, right? Amar Loi, don't worry, Hashem said. You have something much better than agriculture. You have natural resources. You have sure, you have water. But you know what that water is going to bring? It's going to bring the chalazon, which is the fish that everyone's still fighting about what it is, but it's the fish with which we make techelas. Shenemar amim har yikro usafune temune chol. Zokt Rashi, al yidei chalazon oilim in ayom lahorim. The chalazon comes up, I think it comes up every so many years, every 70 years it comes up from the yam to the mountains, and that's your territory. B'tsoivin b'damay techelas. And that's very valuable. The nimkar bedamim yikar. And like we learned in the Tchelas video that Moti showed us a couple of years ago on Hanukkah, right? That Tchelas wasn't just a valuable product for the Eden. It was a royalty. There were times where nobody else was allowed to go around the Tchelas. It was reserved for royalty. So it was very valuable in the world. It wasn't just valuable because it's a religious article like an esrog. It was valuable to everybody. So it was really expensive. Amim har yikro, Mikol Shvatim. Yiskapsu laharecha. All the shvatim are going to gather to your mountains because that's where you're going to be selling the chalazon, liknais to purchase safune to munechayil.
So when the suffering came knocking on the door, that would wait 70 years?
No, because he had enough money from those 70 years to supply whatever he needed. But he didn't only sell chalazon. We're going to soon see what else he had. Usfune to munechayil. Tani we learned. Tani Rabbi Yosef. Safune ze chalazon. Safuni is referring to chalazon, and Rashi says, why was the Safuni called chalazon? Shu davar chashiv, it's a davar chashiv, and Safun chashiv b'lashon brayso. The word Safun is a lashon of chashivas. Tambude zutris. Tamuni was a special type of very expensive fish, and let's see if we can figure out what that fish is from Rashi. Tris dak shekayin tunina. So I think that means locks. I'm not sure. Does the article say what it is? Does it say it's tuna? It's a type of fish. What? Tuna fish. Oh, so it had tuna fish. Okay.
Tuna comes from the ocean?
No, it's all.
The salt
Yeah.
fish?
Choil Choyos is a chuchas levana, that's white glass, which is extremely expensive. Rashi is chuchas levana. Hayotzim nachoyel. Kedama b'yitzis haShabbos v'choyel shel Zvulun choshev mishar choyos, the sand from the sand dunes of Zvulun's territory. It was very good sand. The royal is chuchas levana. So sure, once every 70 years they got a big bonus of chalazon money, but they had a steady stream of revenue from their natural resources. But the problem is, if these are found in the ocean, how in the world am I going to control its selling? Anybody can come with a boat and get it away. So how am I going to control it? How am I going to make sure that I'm the one who's going to be able to harvest the revenue from this? And Rashi says, because oh, I'm sorry, that's later. So how in the world am I going to guarantee that I'm going to get the revenue out of it? Anybody can go and take halazon, and I won't be able to stop it. I can't monitor. I don't have a Ministry of Fisheries and Oceans that I can go give people tickets for fishing without a license. So Hashem told them, you have nothing to worry about. What does that mean? It's going to be like a carbon. If anybody tries taking from your natural resources and doesn't pay, he's going to go completely bust. It will not work at all. So you have a built-in guarantee that no one's going to steal your natural resources because they will not be matzliach if they don't pay for it. That's a pretty good protection of a monopoly. That's the ultimate protection of a monopoly. You don't need the government to enforce it. The people will simply not be able to succeed if they don't pay you. So they will not be matzliach. How do you see that from the words of Sham Yizbechu Zivche Tzedek? So Rashi tells us, Kasher Aser Gezel Ba'olah, just like Gezel would pass the carbon oilah, Kach lo yigzlu mincha klum. No one will be able to steal from you. Shem yitel shavar pruta b'loy damim. If someone takes even a shavar pruta without paying, tiskalkalat tzvia, the dye will get ruined. The achoil and the sand that they want to use to make glass with, b'lo yoyel klum. It doesn't speak about what's going to happen to the tuna fish, but I guess that's obvious. It can go bad. I don't know. Okay, so more weiter. So now we're going to finish our thought. If you want to say that the city of Kitron is the city of Tzipure, why in the world would Zavulun have complained about the fact that Tzipure was in his chelik? For Havi Tzipure milsa dadiva tuva. Tzipure was so good it would make that his chelik was superior to anybody in Klal Yisrael. So therefore, there would have been no reason for him to complain. So it cannot be that Tzipure was in the chelik of Zavulun. Zavulun would not have complained had that city had Tzipure been in his chelik. If you're going to say that it doesn't have the mila of Zavas Cholubudvash, and Rashi explains to us the mechanics of what does it mean Zavas Cholubudvash. Ha'izim oichlim ta'im, because the goats there eat the deliciously sweet figs, Vadvash noitif mahim, and the honey is dripping from these delicious figs that the izim are eating, and therefore v'chalav zav min izim. And now the milk is going to flow from the izim, the nasim kamin nachal, and it creates like a river of sweetness. So there was a river that had milk and honey flowing through it.
Didn't you say earlier that you're not allowed to raise goats near Yisrael?
In Yerushalayim, in Israel. My wife was once in the store with Mrs. Brown, Allah Shalom, Moshe Adler's mother-in-law, and it was during a time where the gas was very, very expensive. So she says, yeah, like now. So she says, I don't understand that I wish they gave us Eretz Yisrael, which is Zuvas Chulav with the Vosh. Who's going to so schlecht when it's filled with gasoline with oil? Who's going to with the Chulav with the Vosh? That's right. Okay, so to Gemara weiter. Frag to Gemara, if you're going to say that there's no Zavos Cholav Dvash in Tzipure, Rish Lakish said a fascinating thing. L'didi Chazali, I saw Zavos Cholav Dvash to Tzipure. I actually saw the sweet running rivers of Tzipure. And you know how big it was? You know how much land they had that had this feature of Zavos Cholav Dvash? Shisha Asr mil al Shisha Asr mil. It was 16 mil by 16 mil. If you're going to say the loy nefisha the sure, he had 16 mil by 16 mil, but maybe his brothers had a much greater territory that was also Zavas Chalav Udvash. Well, Amar Rabba Bar Bachan, Amar B'Yochanan, L'didi Chazali Zavas Chala B'Dvash, the Chol of Israel. I saw the entire territory of all of Eretz Yisrael, its land that had that feature of Zavas Chala B'Dvash. The Have, you know how big it was? Kimi Bekuve at Accra, the Tolbaki, the Tolbakni. That's what its territory was, and the land mass was Esrim Utartan Parse Urka. It was 22 parsois long. Upushin, its width was Shisa Parse. And if you do the math, which I don't have the calculation in front of me, but if you do the math, the chelik of Tzipure, which is 16 mil by 16 mil, is 1/8 of the total amount that Rabbi Yochanan just told us as all of Eretz Yisrael. Now, if you're a Shavit, well, how much should you be entitled to as a one Shavit? 1/12. And he had 1/8. So he can't possibly, if he had Tzipure, he couldn't possibly be complaining that he didn't get a fair share. Because to the contrary, he got more than his fair share. So it's impossible that Zvulun had the city of Tzipure, which is what the Gemara's kash is. So Gemara afilu hachi sadois ukramam adifalei. Even though he had a lot of land, more than everybody else, of Zavas, Chala B'Dvash, it still doesn't come to sadois ukramam. So therefore, it's not a kasha. Yes, Tzipure could have been in the chelik of Zvulun, and he still was complaining.
Even the 1/8 is not such a kasha. So maybe the 1/8 because the mountain goes so high, so either you go across or you go up and down. You only have the 1/8 if you go up and down.
Now here. So let's see the Rashi. L'didi chazali zavas cholav advash cholav shishol. The whole makom shusham. I saw the whole area that it had it. In Boston Tzarfa Yachat, if you're going to put together all the different pieces of land that have this feature, have a Kimebe Kuve and Accra to Tulbakni. It was that area. Sheimakam, these are all places. Accra, Makam Evel Nar, it's a place it's Evel Nar, Balaz, it's called Porto. I don't know where these places are. But Adivale Chavivale, he still would rather have Sada Shukramim that produces, and Dekanami. How do I know that Zvulun was complaining that he didn't have Sada Shukramim? Is because the end of the pasuk that we discussed, where Zvulun was complaining, Zvulun Amcheref Nafsha Lamos B'Naftali Al Meroy Mesada, because he was jealous of what Naftali had. Naftali Al Meroy Mesada Shmamina. So you see, it was the Sada that he was jealous of, and he complained that he didn't have enough Sada.
Grass is always greener on the other side.
I hear. Okay. The Omar Rabavo. Ve'ikrin te'akir. This is a shittle new thing, so we'll just make a little more line. It says, Ki Aza Azuva Sia, Aza will become abandoned. The Ashkelon Lishmama, and Ashkelon will become desolate. Ashdod v'Tarai Migrashua, they'll be chased away from Ashdod. The Akron to Akron, the city of Akron will be uprooted. So what does this mean? Zu Kisri Bas Edom. This is referring to the area of Kisri Bas Edom. So it's referring to the Goyish territory of Edom. It sits between, I guess, between the mountains, between the sands. This was a real problem in the names of the Yevonim. It was very difficult to uproot because it was sitting surrounded by these sands, and they were a constant point of difficulty to Klal Yisrael. They couldn't get them routed out. They couldn't rout them out. And when finally the Beis Chashmonai were able to uproot these people, Achidas Migdal Shir, Rashi, that means Kavushas Migdal Shir, that we captured, we took over the fortress of Shir. It was a very happy day. Okay, let's stop here, and we'll be Mamshech Mitzvah tomorrow and Moshe Shabbos as well. Shkoyach. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. So again, on Shabbos we're learning 45 minutes before Mincha, and we're going to chazar over what we learned on Shabbos, Moshe Shabbos. We're going to start learning at 7:30. I'm going to start at 7:15 because they're behind, and I got to catch them up. So I'm going to start with them at 7:15. And by the time 7:30 comes, I'll make sure to be up to where we're up to now, and then we'll be Mamshech. Okay.